My oldest daughter was looking to get into photography. Now, me being a photographer, all about cameras, talking about on this channel, I thought, well, I need to pick something good. Now, originally she was looking at the Kodak, like little instant cameras, or like the Polaroid cameras, because, you know, thought, oh, cool, with her friends, you know, she's a teenager, they hang out and stuff like that. They can just print photos and go with it, right? You know, so cell phones are great for snap shooting and stuff like that, but there's this rise of point and clicks and stuff like that, that I was like, okay, cool. Maybe I could foster this, right? Maybe rather than letting her use one of my cameras, I could get her a camera of her own. So I spent a lot of time researching and looking at the best camera. The Polaroids are cool. Those, you know, Instax are cool, but you get one photo, and if you mess up, you mess up. And I guess part of me was like, I guess that's the fun of it, but it's also really costly. So I did find one camera that I think was probably the best bet. And to be honest with you, I kind of love it enough that like it's got me considering buying one for myself. This is the Fujifilm Instax Mini EVO. Now, if you've been paying attention to the camera news, most recently they actually announced a wide version of this camera. The original version is what I have here. I still think this is a really fun camera, especially for quick on-the-go point and shoot kind of situations, right? It's so tiny and small, and it has that like nostalgic like Fujifilm look. Like, look at this. Look how cute this thing is. So I looked at a bunch of things, right? And I actually ended up choosing the Instax EVO line only because it was a kind of a hybrid, if you will. Like, it was an introduction to actual mirrorless cameras and being able to take multiple digital photos, and you had the whole Fuji back kind of film simulations and lens simulations. But at the same time, you had that combination of, I could sit here, you know, take a shot, and if I like that shot, you can actually go like this and literally print the photo on demand. How cool is that? It does take a minute, so give it a minute. It's got to warm up. And then there it is. Look at that. How cool is that? And then do we shake it like a Polaroid picture? Or am I not allowed to say Polaroid? As always, when I get any kind of new camera or camera thing, I want to test it out. So let's go ahead on a journey to Huntington Beach and let's see just some of the shots that I took. You're going to go with me on a quick walk around downtown Huntington Beach, Main Street, take a couple shots with it, and then we'll see just how well those photos come out. I'll be able to export them on an SD card and we can see those results. I will say off the bat that if this is this is honestly like the perfect like look. I can come in here and perfectly pocket the camera, right? It fits in your pocket perfectly. You can actually have different straps if you want it. There's no video, it's just photos. So that's kind of the joy of it. So let's go to town. It's very, what do you call it? So everything's auto on it, right? You have face detection, you have AF illumination. You have different presets here. I should be able to go down. In this case, I'm going to suppress flash. No macro. Everything's auto. So auto white balance, auto exposure. Perfect. Okay. Let's go to work. Now it has a center point, like a focus in like right in the center. So once you focus something on there and you hold it, you should be able to then move it and it'll stay in focus. It is nice in the hand. It's actually big enough where you can kind of grip it and not really worry about it falling too much. Like, I wish, like, and again, this is JPEG, it's not RAW, so it's not gonna be like I can make edits to it. So that's definitely something different for my typical shooting. The nice thing is you could actually save everything to an SD card. The only difference is if you like the whole, I'm going to print with the whole little Polaroid look, you're not going to be able to necessarily capture all that. I wish you could change the exposure a little bit. Just because I feel like it'd be different as far as like how things are put in. It's not as fast to react. Like you want to do like a bunch of snapshots, spray and pray, right? Like I can't sit here and be like, clack, 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 clack. It's all single shooting. The thing is, it makes you really stop and think about what you're shooting. And I think that's kind of the joys of point and shoots and why they're so popular now, is because you can't, like, as a photographer, take your camera and just like, right? Like you have to stop and really think about it, compose it, and hope that you're getting like the right shot for it. So there is that bonus to make you kind of slow down. The reason I like coming to downtown Huntington Beach is it's just like vibes. But I gotta like sit here and think, okay, exposure, I want exposure that way. So I really gotta kind of frame the shot. And I can review my shots by clicking the little play button. And I can just go through. I will say I like the fact that you actually have different lens simulations and different film simulations. So by twisting the front of it here, you actually can choose different lenses, like a vignette, a soft focus, blur, fisheye, color shift, light leaks, mirror, double exposure, and half frame. So that's really cool. And then you can mix different film styles. So you could go, like a normal film style, something more vivid, pale, canvas, monochrome, sepia, yellow, red, blue. Like you get some good like differences you can play with. The retro one's a vibe, but like you might as well edit. I don't know. I guess the thing is you're shooting JPEG, so you're gonna get like that look. Versus I normally would take a raw, do the edits in raw or in like Lightroom, and then I would apply the different, what do you call it, the edit scenes, or the different like filters and stuff. So what we're gonna try with just some basic stuff for now and kind of go from there. So one of my last videos when I came down here, I actually brought the Nikon ZF, and that was like the best of both worlds. It had that retro vibe that you would get with a camera like a Fuji, but it had the newer innards and newer tech of something like a Z6 II or a Z7 II. So you kind of were able to switch between, I want to capture a whole ton of stuff or nothing at all. Stuff like this, like I like the nostalgic feel of it, but yeah, for someone who started out in a DSLR mirrorless world, it could definitely be hard to go back to using something like this. Oh, you're good, man. I actually like the colors, how they look. Especially right now, it's actually not raining, so it's not too bad. Like, throwing on like a retro look, like this is more for if you're the kind of shooter that I just want to transfer photos. Now, the cool thing about the camera is you actually can download the Fuji app, and you could download any photos you quote unquote print, which is good and bad. Like, in order to print, so you see this little lever, you have to actually pull this lever and it will physically print out an image. But you can't download your images on the app unless you've printed them, which to me doesn't make any sense at all. Calm down. See if I can level it out just a bit. Now it is a 28, so it's like you have to like really kind of get up close. Somebody. I guess for me, because I come from the world of portrait shooting, like I like to be up close to the individual work, get the different things. I didn't pay enough time to actually sit out here, so I'm just gonna go back to the lab and we can review this more. Let's go. The camera itself starts at about $199. You can find it at any Best Buy, Amazon. Got some affiliate links down here if you want to click on those. This camera, for what it comes with, It's really actually, it's fun. It's that nostalgic kind of vibe. It's small, it fits into your pocket. It actually has a f2 aperture setting, or the lens is an f2, and it's also a 28 millimeter equivalent. Now I will say this sensor size is really dramatically small. Can you see that? Like how small it is, the sensor? Like it's small, but it's an f2 equivalent and it's a 28 millimeters. So you get a really good focal range. And honestly, it's not that bad, all things considered. What comes in this camera? So you actually get a 1/5 inch CMOS sensor. Honestly, is probably equivalent to some cell phones these days. It does record total, pixel count of 2560 by 1920. It does have internal memory, which could shoot up about to a 45 images. But if you get an SD card, you're, to the moon. Don't compare this to like a Nikon Z6 or a Z8 or a Z9. Trust me, it's not there. But that doesn't mean it's not good. Shutter speed, it's all automatic. So like, don't expect like you to manually adjust things. It could go from a quarter of a second to 1/8,000th of a second, which surprisingly for a small camera like that, I'm impressed. Like my Z30 can only do like 1/4000th. You do have control for some exposure compensation. You have your standard, up to or down to EV stops. That's if you want to use it. Metering wise, it does focus on, it's a built-in flash, so you could do TTL metering and multi-metering as well. You really can change it on and off in the settings. It's not that complex though. Trust me, this is not like any mirrorless camera where you could go in and configure the settings. It's very, very basic. One of the bigger selling features of these kind of cameras is just you have Fuji's special sauce, right? For different lens and filter combinations that you have 10 different styles of lenses and 10 different styles of filters, equating to essentially 100 potential combinations of film looks for your photos. So you could go from like a vivid to something that's like old timey. You could do double exposure. You could do some cool like fisheye effects. Again, it's all in body processed. Don't expect raw images. It's JPEGs. Take it with you will. Like, honestly, this is not like your professional go out and shoot. This is not your, oh, I get paid on the weekend sometimes to do little portraits. You're not using this camera. Trust me, that's not what this is meant for. This is meant for just fun, classic, I want to go out and shoot. You can't do burst photos. You can't do anything insane like that. This is like a weekend, like I'm going on a trip and I just want to, take some photos and maybe print one or two out. Like, it's fun. it's like what I like and loved about the Nikon ZF was just how nostalgic it was, but all the power behind it, right? This is just that nostalgic factor in a very simple body and simple process. You do have a LCD screen on the back. It's not the best, but it gets the job done. You have very simple menu controls. The controls for things like your EV compensation, if you want to use flash or what autofocus you use, if you use an autofocus or not, pretty simple. I mean, it's not that complicated. On the front, you have a flash, which is okay. And you have so you do actually have a quarter thread on the bottom, so you can actually mount this on a tripod, and then you can turn on the self timer and come up and push the button on the side, on the front here versus the side. That makes more sense than trying to be like, hold on, let me take your photo. The button on top here, you actually could save different presets or favorites of your different lens and filter combinations. And this is just a little quick access button to pull those favorites. So like for a teenager, right? Or someone who's just getting into photography, like a kid, I'm not going to give this to like a 8-year-old, right? If they're not responsible, but like for a teenager who's looking for their first camera, it's actually pretty nice. You can connect this to the Instax app as well to download some of your printed photos, which I thought was pretty cool. You have that Bluetooth connection, or you can actually pull a little mini SD card out from the bottom. It does recharge via USB-C. The power, you should get, at least a couple hundred photos before it dies. It didn't die. I didn't have to recharge since my shoot earlier today. So, hey, there's that. So are you considering buying this camera? Or maybe you're looking at the wide version that just recently got announced. If you got questions about it, leave them in the comments below and I'll make sure to respond to you and give you some insight to hopefully help your purchase to or not to decision. I'm Joe. This is Matsu XO. If you like this kind of content, make sure you subscribe to the channel. The thumbs up always helps algorithm, helps others find my work. And Fuji, if you're watching this, call me. I want to try the XM5. Come on. Like that to me is the gateway drug. Call me, Fuji. Fuji.